Okay, go ahead. Very good.
Just for an example, I was a construction worker, I was an electrician working in powerhouses, and all of a sudden I come up with some medical conditions, going to Mayo Clinic to find out what was wrong. And they did some x-raying, finding out I had a cancer in my left lung. And so they were able to remove it. And I made good friends with the doctor, and I'm glad I did. Kind of supporting even other people that he was even working on. And but then when I was about ready to, he had taken another patient. I had lost a whole lung, and wouldn't see his family. And just an example, what can we do with some of our trials? And so I just talked to the man, and I says, "You're getting a second chance to be able to express yourself to your family." And so he did. He changed. He wanted to die. But on the other hand, the best of it was when they took the cancer out, they tested it, and they said it probably was from smoking, because I smoked for about 6 or 7 years when I was a teenager. And I said, wait a minute, I quit 30 years ago. I was in the 40s. But anyway, he says, I'll do something for you that I won't do because I helped him with the patient. And I'll take your cancer and I'll send it to New York. They sent it to New York and they tested it and they couldn't find anything. And finally, one of the chemists says, let's burn it. And they burned it. You know what turned up? Asbestos.
Oh.
So then I go back to North Dakota, and I'm walking in a mall because it was cold outside, and meeting a friend that was a tinner. I had worked on some of the jobs I was on. And he said that he had a problem, and then he was working with a lawyer out of Fargo. So he gave me her phone number, I called her, and sure enough, they set up a meeting. All the companies that were working on these powerhouses, 50 lawyers in one room. I was the only patient in there. And from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, they were asking me questions, trying to trip me up. Said I worked with my dad putting siding on the house because it's made out of asbestos, or insulating and ceiling, and it couldn't break me. But the best of it was because of me. See, 500 construction workers that were working on the same jobs I was got to get a settlement.
Wow.
And it wasn't small. A lot of them were bigger because the companies were going bankrupt. But they were hiding this whole affair. But anyway, see, that's the best of it is then Mayo Clinic, what had happened to me, they were doing some testing and they said, could you be a guinea pig? And so one of the first things they were working on at the time was a camera and a light that they could go down into the lung and shine this light and take pictures. Didn't have to take biopsies to find the cancer. Cancer showed up a different color.
Differently on the film, yeah.
But see, we never know when we going through a trial that we can be a benefit for, and 500 people, and it maybe exploded more than that. But that's when I lost, how many people were even helped. But so many things, and I even had stomach surgery because I was drinking when I was a youth. And actually, when I was 18 years old, and I was laying in the hospital, I was bleeding in my stomach, and they had me on cream meals and milk, and I get a letter from my dad, and he shows it to me. He says, Jerry, you're supposed to be going to Vietnam on Monday. And when the doctor walked in, I says, what do I do with this letter? And he says, I'll take care of it. I didn't have to go to Vietnam. See, there's benefits. How do, and sometimes we go through these trials, we don't realize that what good is it going to do?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it changed my view of what I see in people. And by being a guinea pig for Mayo Clinic for 17 years, then it changed my life. Right now they're doing a food testing. And it's interesting because I was getting all the feedback from them and how much of it, well, we are taking chemistry if you look at all your food that even you buy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to teach people that when you're buying food, you should look at the label and see what, like MSG, for example, because of my stomach and because of surgery I had, and I didn't have no acid, and they built the machinery to even test me to see why I didn't have acid.
Wow.
And then they found some material that they could give me. That was back when I was 40 years old. I'm 87 years old now. They kept me alive all this time, see?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what
yeah.
can you be a benefit for humanity?
Other people. Yeah, that's right. Wow.
But on
So-
the other hand, you have to have value. I see people as people. And I see people, what can he be? And what is his purpose? And when you go, especially to the countries like India, and you see the children, and they're hungry, and they're dirty, and even when I went the first time, I come back to America, and I said, that was one trip too many. But then I had dreams every night for 2 weeks. And a voice saying to me, who's going back for them children?
Mm.
And I've been there for 12 years now.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Wow, yeah. So what you experience benefits someone else, and even for you it's a hardship, but for them there is a benefit. Wow.
Even just the other day, I was just looking at some of Mayo's studies, and I always wondered why the kids in India and people
Mm-hmm.
have a knowledge that they retain.
Hmm.
Like here in America, I mean, you talk to somebody and the next day
It's gone.
It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But there you can teach for 3 hours and they can repeat everything. And this was years ago when I first started going to India. I recognized
You
that.
recognize that? Wow.
But here the other day, Mayo Clinic came
Is-
up and said that cuminum and what's the other one? If that's the food they eat.
And
That's
it's
the
part. It's a
spices that
strong
they
part
eat.
of their diet. Okay, I get it. So it's a deficiency
Yeah,
in
yeah.
our culture,
Yeah, and-
but it's a
and you
staple
go to
in
different
theirs.
countries,
I get
how
it.
much can we even learn from India?
Mhm.
How can we even learn from Mexico or other countries? Germany. Germany is really pushing the button for as far as medical. There's so many things that come even through Mayo Clinic and them, and that's where we need to be, because too many of our youth are sitting and playing on their phones and playing on computers, games,
Right.
and the best thing is the game of life.
Yes.
What do you do with it? And if
That's
you're
right.
not going into your computer or going into your cell phone and educating yourself, just like with me, I was at a bad place. And Mayo Clinic gave me 2 years to live after they did my stomach. I went to see doctors in
This
Kansas
is 40
City.
years ago, right?
Yeah, 40 years.
40 years ago. Okay,
So,
uh-huh.
I'm still here.
You're still here, yeah.
I'm a voice that can encourage.
Yeah.
And I went to, I don't know, maybe 20 doctors all over the United States. And one of them, especially down in Kansas City, he was a doctor and also a chiropractor. And he said things to me that pushed me to go back to Mayo and say, okay, what's wrong?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they took and made that piece of machinery just for me.
Wow.
There's a probe that went down in my stomach and told me go out and eat the worst food you can eat, so you have a stomachache. And finding out pizza was the worst one because I didn't have no acid. Wasn't
Okay.
breaking
Yeah.
down
So you couldn't
cheese.
break down the. Yeah.
3 hours later, even 3 days later, you have
still
bad
there.
tummy ache.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just me being that guinea pig,
Mm-hmm.
spoke to him and said that 75% of the people that are being traded for high acid reflux is wrong. It's opposite. You ain't got enough acid. So if you're eating food and it don't break down,
Mm-hmm.
then you need to be questioning yourself that maybe, and you can buy it. Beard and Fried's got hypochloric acid, and you can take one pill, and if I don't take it, it don't even break down my medicines.
Wow. Wow.
I've got a little
Wow.
bit of high blood pressure, and I have to take amlodipine, and if I don't take the medicine on hydrochloric acid, I've got a bad day.
Wow, wow.
So I'm going to turn it
So,
over to you. What has God done, or the things that God has been done to you?
well, there's so many different things. I remember my ankle, when I shattered that in 2001, it was really, really bad. They said that they were going to actually cut, the talus where it goes, the talon that goes where, this thing moves. That part was totally destroyed, and they were just going to cut it and fuse it, put a pin in it, so that my foot would be just like at a permanent L.
Permanent.
And it just so happened that there was a teaching, a gentleman there that was teaching sports medicine in that hospital to a bunch of students, and he happened to be there when he came in. And he said, "I'll take this case." He wasn't even a resident of the hospital. They didn't have privileges at the hospital. He was just there teaching, and he took the case. And they learned a lot from how to be creative in repairing something of that nature. And today I'm walking normal, and you see everything is great. But that helped other people because they learned something about what they can do.
So is
with
your left foot or your right foot?
It's my left foot. But if I never
the same
told you,
thing?
yeah, if I never told you, you never would know.
Oh.
Yeah, and I broke the fib and the tib at the same time, so it was a compound, multiple things. But well, those are things, even my life experience, just with working and things of that nature, things that I've been through, things that people have told you. Like I remember someone told me, "Oh, you'll never amount to anything. You don't have what it takes to do that." Well, things like that, can become either something that holds you back, or it can be a catalyst to say, "No, I can do this." We can go beyond that. And I think explaining that to people, especially to young people, that when someone tells you you don't have what it takes, or someone tells you you can't make it in the world, you're not smart enough, you're not educated enough, you're from the wrong part of the city, or whatever they tell you, don't let those negative things frame your mindset. But say, "I don't know, I don't believe that you're right, but I know I can do something. Let me go and pursue that and be the best at that." And if we have that sort of attitude, not only will you help yourself, but you'll also help others, because then you can encourage others. So over the years, I've been able to encourage people who were told that you don't have the right education, you don't have, racial things is a big thing here in the country, right? You're the wrong color, or whatever the situation is. And I'm able to be an example to them and says, "No, that's not true. You can frame your own destiny. My caste system doesn't define me, right? The only thing that defines me is what I think about myself and what I subject myself to. If I can push myself, then I can break out of the norm for everyone else. I don't have to be the norm." And I think that's the attitude that we need, not only here, but in the world. And that if people can understand that and take that attitude and says, "Well, the way I'm born will not dictate what I will become in the future." And then once you realize that you can break those molds, then you can help other people up. And I found that in my life, I'm able to help people up to become more than what they are. I'm a manager of people in the business world, so I'm able to help people say, "Well, okay, you can become something better. You can grow into this. You can mature, and you might not know much now, but if you're wise and you take advantage of every situation, when you leave here, you can be better than you were before." Yeah.
I'll give you an example. There was a lady that was taking handicapped children, and this one boy was born, and I think maybe he was like a couple months old, and so she finally took him in, and he won't walk, he won't talk, he won't do anything. And even like Mayo Clinic says, from birth until 12, it's a learning curve. They have sponges, and we need to be, and this is a good example. I'm going to say this story. And the fact that he didn't walk, and then he cried because she had to feed him, and finding out that she could turn the radio on and have music, symphonies. And from birth until she had taken him in, until he was 18 years old, one night the husband and wife were watching TV, and she went to bed earlier, and she says, make sure you shut off the TV, and she went to bed. And then about midnight, here this music's going on. And she pokes her husband, because he was in bed, and he says, I told you to shut the TV off. He says, I did. So they went into the living room, and there was a piano sitting, and this boy had crawled out of bed,
You turned it
go
on.
walk, crawled over to the piano, and was playing symphonies.
Wow.
And you could, I
Wow.
met him when he was 42 years old, and you could go to the piano and you could hit 3 keys, and he could
You
play the
play
song.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
And see, that's a good experience. That there's nobody in this world that can be educated, might be in a different vein or different avenue, but he was great on music. Just listening to music for 18 years, what greatness did he have?
And that's something that I told a lot of young people when I was teaching them is that, you know, you might feel that you're a failure, but sometimes it's not you. It's that the people that are teaching you can't teach you.
Yeah,
But you have the ability, and you have to find out what is the best way that you learn. And once you find that, then you can become productive and you know, invest in it, invest in yourself. And very often that's what happens. I mean, that happens a lot in our education system. You know, we and around, not only here but around the world, and they teach us, oh, you can't learn, but yes, you can. You know, it's just that sometimes it's their inability to teach you or to be creative enough to bring those creative, and as in the case that you just explained, here's a young man who, you know, we would look at him and say he's disabled. He can't do anything. But no, he's not. He's able to play a piano excellently. Yeah.
but it also leads into a point that this is the reason I'm doing it right now. The disease is here, so we can't travel to India or Africa where I've been, but we've got Wi-Fi, and if the satellites go up, and it's a good place to invest into. Tesla's going to put up 3,000 satellites. Every home in the world is going to have Wi-Fi. So a lack of education is not going to happen in the future. But I believe that we need to be, that's why I'm trying to do this presentation, is to encourage people to start to learn how to use cell phones. Modi in India wants to give every family an Android. What is that going to open up? 1 billion people? And India,
Wow.
Africa is coming up the same way.
Mm-hmm.
They can't be going to school, so the kids are learning on computers, on cell phones. They can Google anything they need. I know I got a friend from Fargo, North Dakota, and he was just down a couple weeks ago. And he's on his cell phone all the time, and he's asking Google this, asking Google that. And you can
He's
even go
learning.
to university, you can go to college, you can do anything you want. And this is important because we need the next generation. So if even Morty, if he gives a home, and if we can get the 12-year-old and 13, 14-year-olds to be able to take these cell phones and learn how to use them, and then teach the parents how to do it, what have we got?
That's right.
What kind of a change can we have in the whole world? We can't have this indifference that's happening all the time, and saying some countries you have a caste system.
Right.
That should not happen.
That shouldn't happen. No.
Education
They
is
can
the
change.
only thing that's lacking.
Yes, they can change. Yes.
So even parents, even in America here, both mother and father work, and they're raised by daycare, and then they're raised by schooling systems. And where's our values have gone to? I look at even my lifetime, I'm 87 years old, I'm saying, wow, I have invested in my kids. And what happened to the teaching? If that 12 years of space, birth until 12, when they're learning languages, is not there, and they're just watching TV, and the TV is
Teaching them.
influencing them, or the school is influencing them, there's other people influencing them. Look at where our values going to. And it's not like any other country. I mean, you can keep complaining about, oh, I got nothing to eat. Well, I can teach you how to grow a garden. And if you don't know how to even grow a garden, you can go to Google and Google will
And
tell
see
you how.
it. Yeah, YouTube will show it to you. Yeah. Well,
Just think about it. They have monsoons that they have as much as 30 inches or even 40 inches of water in one day, but they don't retain it. In America, we retain water, and it feeds the farms. It also turns electricity, hydro, and it turns our factories. That's what made America great. All the other nations, all they have to do is start to educate, and they can have a future, a
yes,
vision for
yes,
the
yes,
future.
yes.
How can we change and be an exporting nation instead of an importing nation?
But you have to have a plan and a desire, and see that you can do it, and you can be part of it. That's the difference. Is that if you can see that, if you can imagine that you can do it. I'm not pushing imagination from that way, but that's really what makes a difference, right? If you can imagine that you can do something, and you sit down and you say, well, let me just pursue that, then very often you can accomplish a lot more than you think. Sometimes we hold our own selves back because we say, well, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But it's not until we actually try it, or we say, well, let's go beyond. Gene, I'll tell you a funny story. I as a kid, I used to ride motorcycles, right? And we would go to the races, and we would see the professionals. And they built a track that was, with tractor trailers and bulldozers and everything. And we're watching the races from about, 200 yards away. I mean, it was a good distance, maybe even more. And because you're up in the bleachers and the stands. So we said, well, okay, we're going to go and build our own track, right? So we went back and we built the track based on what we think we saw. But what we didn't realize is that when we built everything twice the size and height than what they were racing on, right? So we're practicing and we're racing and we're going around, and we've been doing this for a year or so. And then these guys heard, the professionals heard that we had a track that was really something else, and they came to see these little kids. Now we're kids, we're not even 18 years old yet, right?
Yeah.
And these guys in their, their 20s and stuff, and they're professionals, and everyone looked up to these guys. They came to the track. And they couldn't go around the track because they says everything is so big. And we were doing it like it was nothing. It was just the imagination. For us, it was like, okay, this is what it is. So therefore we can do it.
Increase it and make it better.
We didn't know. We're thinking that this is normal, right? And for them, it was so abnormal that they actually stopped and watched us in awe. And these are the guys that got paid and was well known in the nation. So what I'm saying is sometimes we limit ourselves by what we think and how we perceive things. And very often, if we step outside of that, we can go way beyond. And that's what we're trying to encourage everyone to do, to think outside of your borders, think outside of the limitations that you have, because you can most likely do a lot more than what you think you can.
Even myself, I was 14 years old or 12 years old, and I'm listening to the radio. We didn't have TV, and all these soldiers are coming back from the war, and I'm saying to myself, I'm talking about all this construction. Where's the best place to be to find a job? And I went to my dad and I says, I want to go to electrician school. And he found out it was going to be $800. It was way more money he had. And then it was like 6 months later, he's wiring the farm, and he has a contractor come out. And the contractor says, I'm too busy. He says, I can only send you one man. Can one of your boys help? So I was the helper. I worked with him for a year. He finally crashed a plane and died in it. But on the other hand, I found another job a couple of years later, and they found out that I had experience of a year of electricians. And putting a briquetting plant together, big warehouses, big machinery, lots of wiring. And you know what? I was 18 years old, and I had 30 people working for me.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I had
Yeah,
the
you had to learn
education,
that
see?
educate. Yeah.
So I'm encouraging everybody that we're talking to, don't downplay yourself. And instead of, even like now, I got my first computer when I was 72. I use it as a tool
Yes. Yes.
to learn what my future is going to be. And it's coming to pass, and I'm helping people.
And to help. Wow. Well, our time is up, and it was great speaking with you and speaking with you online. We pray that you tune in next week for another discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Amen.
we appreciate you.
Oh, yes. Amen. It's excellent.
How many
Excellent.
people are really gonna make a difference?
Can you help her there? Turn it off.
Okay, can you shut it down?
No, okay. Thank you. Yeah, so that's good. So then, I'm just reminded of the Kunas, and that's something that I like to talk about too, because they have the access to this
You
sort
know,
of stuff.
As long as we keep
And-
looking, we can, I'd like to get it